What's going on, everybody? Soloyaker here, and this video is actually pretty interesting. It comes from the channel Jubilee. I guess they did a pro-gun, anti-gun discussion, and we're going to get right on into this. This is probably going to be a 2 or 3 part video because the entire live stream or the entire video is about an hour and a half. I will leave links in the description if you want to go over there and watch it, but I'm going to give you some of the highlights and kind of give my 2 cents on it as well. So let's get right into this. Get your popcorn ready because this is going to be a good one.
Our topic is pro-gun versus anti-gun, and our first prompt is, I fired a gun.
Fucking sinker, that's what I'm talking about, Shadows! You know I love that shit!
My family does hunt. That's a part of our culture. And when I was younger, my dad, I've gone with him. I've never killed an animal, but I have gone with him for like tracking purposes or, being outside, connecting with nature. And he did teach me how when I was younger. So it's not something I've done regularly, but I have done it.
All right. I'm guessing this woman, she's pregnant. At this point in her life, I don't know if she's married or anything. I just know that, one of the first things I told my wife to do was get a gun, learn to shoot the gun, because I can't always protect you. That being said, I hope that, we'll see what happens throughout this whole video, and we'll talk about some of the things she says, but as of right now, we have to understand the Second Amendment wasn't based around hunting. The Second Amendment was based on tyrannical government. The Second Amendment's based on our right to bear arms to keep our government from overstepping their boundaries. But we'll see how this goes.
I spent a lot of time in the Middle East growing up, so when we were in the Middle East, we would hunt, use guns in general, and when I would come to America, my family has had guns, I even have guns, and so I've shot multiple times.
Now, mind you, this guy's anti-gun, and he's got multiple guns, and his family's grown up around guns, so it's going to be interesting what he has to say about this.
Well, my whole life is guns. I own over 300-400 guns, you know what I mean? So I shoot them all the time, every day. And I'm also a United States Marine Corps war veteran. I've been to war, so I shot a lot of guns in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I grew up around guns. My father was military and police. My older brother was military and police. My little brother is military. And I was taught to fire weapons at a very early age because my father believed that if you remove the curiosity from a child about the gun and they're uncomfortable with it, they won't be interested. So he was right. It created gun safety in our home. I did not like firing a gun when I was young, and I fire guns now regularly as an adult. It is about the gun and how it feels and how it shoots and how you operate it. So
that's crazy. I do that with my kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't even mess with them.
Yep.
You know
So
what
it takes
I mean?
away all
I
the
can keep them all
curiosity.
over the house.
Yeah.
They don't want it
Yeah.
anymore. Dad,
Yeah.
man, that's your gun. Leave it alone.
And yes, that is the key thing about training our kids and training the people that you would have to, because they don't know, you have to educate them. Do I leave my guns laying around for my daughter to play with? Absolutely not. There's only one gun I keep on my person. My daughter knows where that gun is. She's always like, oh, it's that as pew pew, and it's always like right here, Normally, it's right here, because, it just feels uncomfortable sitting down with it. But for the most part, I've got other guns, and she knows where they are. But those guns are unloaded, then the ammo's not close enough for her to do anything with. But guess what? The one thing that we've taught her is these things will hurt people. This is daddy's stuff. You're not allowed to play with it without daddy's supervision. That's what we're teaching her right now. So it goes a long way. You teach them at 4 or 5 years old, and by the time they're 15, 16 years old, they're going to have the most knowledge, more knowledge than most. I mean, think about Autumn's Armory. Autumn's Armory. Look at her. She's like 10 years old now, and she shoots better than most men.
It was the same. I grew up in Alabama, but my family didn't hunt, weren't military. My dad's a pastor, but they just believed in them for self-defense. And so they were always around the house. We were also instructed very young with firearm safety. And then if my brothers especially wanted to shoot growing up, then my dad would take them and practice with them. I mostly didn't want to because I also have never loved the feeling of shooting a gun. Even now, I have a gun. I'm a registered concealed carry permit owner, but I don't love the feeling, to be honest. And you're right, it differs based on the gun. But I'm not a hobbyist. I think it still revolves around the element of self-defense for me. So it's something I think you need to take responsibility for.
Would anybody want to kind of elaborate just on the feeling of firing a gun, whether it's positive or negative, just as more of an experience?
It depends on the gun, but a lot of them kick really heavily. Even I have a revolver that I got that's meant for women. It's about this big, and it's great to carry because it's small, it's easy, it's light, but shooting it sucks. It really hurts. Some of the larger guns, I've shot an AR-15, it's like butter. It doesn't hurt at all to shoot it. So it definitely depends on which instrument you're using.
And I agree with her. Even for my wife, the firearm that she has, that's her carry gun, I've shot it, and I really don't like it because, it's a subcompact gun. It's chambered in 9mm, and the thing has pop. I'm not saying it hurts my hand. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, I would like to see her carrying a bigger size gun, but she's just not comfortable. And I always say to people, go to a gun range, go to a gun store, and put these guns in your hands and talk to them. Let them explain, yes, this is going to be very compact, but there's the other half of it, and just like she said, she doesn't like shooting the revolver, and I'm guessing it's probably in, 38 special or something, and it probably does have a lot of kick. But you need to learn that so that you understand what you're getting yourselves into. So I'd rather just carry an AR all the time, but that's just not the way it is for me.
I think the person too, I got post-traumatic stress, but they told me I got it different. I get a rush. So now when I shoot a gun, it's like, you know what I'm saying? I relieve all the stress, everything that's about me. I'm having a great time, you know what I'm saying? So it's all on the person and the gun and everything,
We're going to bring in our disagreeer.
Why you never shot a gun?
So growing up, my family, we didn't really have a lot of guns around the house. And my cousins or my relatives didn't really have guns, or it wasn't like an outing.
It wasn't a thing. It wasn't
an outing, yeah. And I found a pellet gun. That's the only thing that my father had growing up, was a pellet gun that he hid in his closet away. And it was one day where me and my sister were playing around, and I found it, and I actually, pointed it towards my sister. So it was a very traumatic experience.
As it should be. And just like we just got done saying, if they would have educated you on what not to do, that probably would have never happened. He's not really given an age of when it happened, but I'm sure he was old enough to find it. And when he found it, even a pellet gun can still hurt people. So that's why education and making sure they understand that the only time they can handle these firearms are with mommy and daddy until they're old enough, or I feel that they're competent enough to handle a firearm by themselves.
For myself, right, and for my family, to the point where when that was brought up, it was more so like somebody said, education on how guns are not as helpful around communities of color.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
If there's not a right education.
Where did you grow up? Because
I grew up in New York.
I live around New Orleans, Louisiana.
I grew up in New York, Brooklyn, New York.
Is it dangerous?
Yes.
So you don't think you need something to protect yourself?
Well, not particularly in Brooklyn, New York, because there were already a mass surveillance of police who had guns,
yeah, but,
right?
But police, you got to call police. It takes time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was never a curiosity for me because of that traumatic experience that I had with my sibling and not really having guns around. So I just never had that inkling in my life to even try to go to a range, or even when friends would suggest it, I would be like, oh, okay, good for you, you know, but I don't really have that interest.
It's understandable.
Do you mind if I ask, did you actually accidentally shoot your sister as well, or did you just play?
No,
Okay.
it was just watching film and we're playing.
I got you, bro.
Right?
Yeah.
Bad guy or good guy.
You could have
and
made a
then-
big mistake.
And it was a pellet gun, and my mom was like, "Boy, if you point that again," and
Your mom knew that you wasn't supposed to point it.
Right.
If they would have taught you earlier,
Right.
you would have known that.
right, but I think they didn't teach me because we didn't have guns around. None
Even
of my
with the
family
BB
had
gun.
guns around. Even the BB guns, like
should've
it
showed
was,
you.
It wasn't a thing.
It just wasn't a thing in
to,
the house.
to have
Your
in
dad
my
just
family.
had it. It was in the closet.
Exactly.
He might have shot it 2 or 3 times. I got you.
Exactly.
I got
And my
you.
parents grew up and they didn't really go to the range, or
I
none
got
of their
you.
friends even spoke about it as well.
Please, anybody that has a pellet gun or a firearm or any type of weapon, train your children to understand that it is important that these things can hurt people. You don't want them to do it, but you have to teach them that, hey, the only time you use said thing is whenever you're in trouble. That's whatever his family did, all they had to do is say, hey, son, don't play with this unless you're with your dad. And then just keep re-emphasizing that same thing over and over until one day, just like the alphabet, you learn it, it sticks up here, and long as it remains up here, those things will never happen.
I'd let my children be around guns.
Well, I currently have 3 children, ages 10, 7, and 4. I mean, I carry regularly, so they know that the gun is on my person. They never are curious about it. They never really want to touch it because they know what I've taught them, right? And that's what it comes down to, is I've taught them, you can touch this, you can look at it. It's not that exciting. In fact, it's actually quite scary. If you were to use this wrong, you would kill somebody. And that's terrifying to children, right? So they have learned, well, you know how to operate it, so you've got it and you've got us and you're keeping us safe. There's no need for me to need to touch that or look at it or play with it.
I've always felt like that too, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't show the kids when they're young, like, if you say, hey, here's my gun, come on outside. You wanna see what the gun do? Come on, put your earmuffs on, let's go. Put your glasses on. Pow! The kids be like, oh, I don't wanna touch that. I don't want nothing to do with that, daddy. Hey, let me leave that alone, you know, and they learn. You have to show them, you know what I'm saying? You have to lead by example. Basically, you know what I'm saying? Hey, if I'm shooting, I need to teach my son and my kids at an early age so I can know they won't have no problems later on down in life.
I told you, and you know something? The majority of all gun owners that have children, they do try to get them the knowledge first. Whether they want to shoot the guns, my daughter, she loves shooting the 22. She shot the M&P 1522. I've got other rifles that she shot. You know, you start them out small, and if they're scared of it, you don't force it on them, but you have to give them that knowledge. And that's what we are teaching. And that's what any responsible gun owner would do for their children, is saying, hey, this can hurt people, and you need to have the knowledge on how to handle said weapon or firearm.
If you tell a child, don't touch my gun, the thing that they want to do most
touch
is
the
touch
gun.
your gun. Like, anyone that has kids knows, if you tell them not to do something, that's all they want to do.
It's facts! It's facts! It's in our facts. These sites is in our facts. It's in our facts.
Rambo, you said you had 300 guns?
Yeah, I got about 300 guns, yeah. And my kids are on them all the time, all day. I got them all around my bed.
You don't worry about them
Well,
ever
first
picking
of all,
one up?
I don't leave them loaded. To operate a gun, you can't just grab it and squeeze it. You know what I mean? You gotta cock it back, take it off of safety. You might have to take it out the holster. You know what I mean? I have one gun that I keep on me.
Yep, I do the same thing. I've got one that's always within arm's reach. Because of YouTube, I'm not gonna break it out. Well, actually I can, it's in a holster. But guess what? This one firearm stays with me at all times. All the other ones, some of them are unloaded, most of them are put away so that she can't get to them, but I have a few that, guess what? I know where they are, and she knows better not to touch those firearms, because if she did, she'd get a big old spanking.
For stuff like that. But the rest of them, they're in safes, and maybe a shotgun here. Maybe I might have a gun under the table somewhere, you know, in a magnet.
I
I
wanna be a
got a
guest
couple
at his
guns
house.
all over, you know, I got
At
a
any
couple
moment
of
you
them.
have a gun pointed at you, ready.
You know what I mean? They all over the house, you know what I mean? I can't lie, you know. My son's been having a loaded gun in his room since he was 10 years old. And his
You said
room is
loaded?
Loaded. Not one in the chamber, but in the magazine. He knows how to operate it and everything. He has a bulletproof vest. He has a gun. He has everything. Now he has way more. I'm a Marine Corps war veteran. I've seen death. People could get crazy, and I just had to teach my son, like, hey, he might have to save me. You can't wait on the police, man. You can call them, but it might be too late.
And once again, I come back to Autumn's Armory. I've met Randy. I've met his wife. I've met Autumn. We've gone out and shot. That is the most crucial part. Autumn's Armory is about, I could be wrong, she should be around 10, 11 years old at this point. The reason she is so functional is because her parents taught her from the early age of, I think, like 5, 6 years old, started teaching her the rights and wrongs of firearm safety. They gave her airsoft guns to practice with, and then when it was time for her to start shooting, she didn't skip a beat because of all the training that their parents did before. Gave the parents the confidence to know that their son, daughter is going to be okay and knows rights and wrongs of firearms. But we have to train them.
So I don't have kids and I don't plan to have kids, but if I did, I would absolutely want them trained, particularly young girls. 'Cause I think it's really, really important for females to learn to exercise the Second Amendment and to protect themselves. Like, if you want to talk about feminism, that is the only thing that actually makes you equal to a man as a woman. Like, that is, to me, it's a crime to not teach girls how to defend themselves. Yep.
I agree with her. That's why, when my wife was pregnant and we didn't know, the gender yet, and I found out it was a girl, I knew that I would have to do the same thing that she's talking about, is make sure my daughter knows how to protect herself, whether it's with firearms, getting her into, some kind of self-defense, whether it's, taekwondo, fighting, whatever. These are things that I want my daughter to know so that she can defend herself if I'm not there to protect her.
I would say, just this last year, it was reported that among child-related deaths in America, gun violence was one of the main factors. That's alarming, right?
Oh, I hate this rhetoric that people friggin' throw out into the news saying all these gun deaths and the school things that are happening. This is the thing that kids have to worry about the most. There are other factors that these kids have to worry about. You can't just blame and blanket the gun for the person that went in to do what they did. And if you look at some of these school things that have been happening, it seems to be kids doing it to other kids because that kid got bullied, picked on, or he had some kind of mental thing. But, I hate this argument.
Even before I knew that statistic, if I ever had kids, and I am planning on having kids, I would not allow my children to be around firearms.
Where did you get your statistics from? Because sometimes I look on the internet, it say one thing, then it say another thing, and so you might be looking at something that might not even be right.
But it is accurate.
Well, it's accurate.
I don't know. I'm just making sure.
It is accurate, but it's accurate because death in children is exceedingly rare. There's very few things that kill them, period. And when you look at the number of things that could kill them, yes, that outranks drowning or being run over by your parents' car. But that statistic, and many like it, get thrown around to say this is a huge problem that's happening all the time. That's not the reality. It's just that it's a low
I feel like even though if it's a low probability, we should do what we can to stop it, right?
It is still the truth that is the number one killer of children.
I mean, is there a number of children that you would care about?
Is it suicide killing?
Well, so I worked as a mental health.
Yeah,
so I worked as a mental health therapist, and I specifically worked with a lot of kids too. But yeah, I mean, right now we have 50,000 suicides a year. Of that, 29,000 are from guns. Yeah. Of those, 90% are successful when people do attempt. But when they do attempt with other different things, so say cutting your wrist, it's at 6.2%. If we look at things like drug overdoses, it's at 10, 12%. It's because you have the ability to call the police, you have the ability for someone to find you. And so when it comes to things like having guns around children, you're putting it at a high rate of all of those different
The same
things.
is true having a pool at your house or having a car that you're driving. So I could ask you the same thing, like what number
So do
before we
we-
ban these other?
Yeah, I mean, do we have rules on driving?
We do have
How
rules.
many
We have a
rules do we
lot
have?
of rules on guns. A whole lot of rules on
So you
guns.
don't
Sure,
think,
sure,
you don't
but-
think,
but-
you don't
but-
think the parents should teach them?
But no. So here's a great way to put it. Do you want your kids around drugs, doing drugs? No. But do you want to educate them on them? Yes. So there's a difference between like, I want my kids around it versus I'm going to educate them. Of course, I'm going to educate my kids on guns. The same way I'm going to educate them around a lot of things that I don't want them to do. But that's what we have to do.
I just said that. It's on us as the parents to educate our kids. And if they don't seem like they're learning anything about the things that we're teaching them, then I wouldn't give anybody a firearm if they didn't want to even learn the 4 basic gun safety rules. I mean, I don't know what this guy's argument is, but whatever.
And the other thing is too, is there has to be a line drawn for everyone. Forget everything, throw everything out the door. Is there a number that would draw you to say, you know, I want heavy restrictions? I've had debates with thousands of people over this, and they'll say like, no, I don't care. It's amendment right, which it's an amendment. We literally added it, and we changed the amendments, and we have many times. So to me, I throw that all out the window and just say, what is that number?
Nobody deserves that. I don't want anybody to be hurt by a firearm, but there are evil people in this world, and to throw blame at the firearm, for some reason, why can't we just point the finger at the person and not give them the attention that they want? Because a lot of these people did it to get attention.
What does that look like to you?
I think for me, the number would have to be that you could prove that there are more lives being lost to gun violence than saved.
Oh, that's easy. That's already happening right now.
It's no way. All right, so last year,
Yeah.
about 18,000 people were killed with a gun.
Yeah.
They estimate 162,000 people saved their own lives in interactions where they
Wait,
most
you said
certainly...
how many people died with a gun last year?
Around 18,800.
But there's
or so.
29,000 just in suicides and guns last year. You're completely
I
wrong.
said gun homicides.
Okay, but-
18,000
yeah.
or so gun homicides.
And
We're going
we
to
have to
separate
ask-
this out.
Why?
Because suicides are a whole different matter and require different solutions. But we're going to talk about
No, 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 no.
homicides where
That-
you have no control in the situation.
Yeah, sorry.
Around 18,000 people were murdered last year with guns.
Yeah.
162,000 are the rough estimates for how many people saved their lives last year with a gun.
And
so when
define
you
save
could,
your lives.
They were in interactions where the statistics show they would have definitely or certainly lost their lives had they not had a gun to protect themselves. So they were in high-stakes situations where had they not had a gun to protect themselves, it is almost certain they would have been murdered.
I have a question. Did they have to like shoot the gun in order to save themselves?
Yeah,
or
that's
just,
statistic,
Not
because
always.
I've studied
Not
that
always.
statistic in depth. And what
Well, you
you're
didn't seem to know it.
No,
But no, they don't always have to have shot the gun. It is whether or not they had a gun. Sometimes they had to shoot it, sometimes they did not. But still, the statistics about how many people are saving their lives every year dwarf the number of
hold
gun
on.
violence homicides.
There's a problem with the statistic. I'll make it quick, which is there's no way to say for certain you would have died if you didn't have a gun. Let's say I go in to rob someone with a gun, and then they had a gun and I left. That is not a statistic to say you would have died if you didn't have a gun.
Right.
And that's what that study actually shows.
That's not what it showed. It shows they were in interactions where somebody had a gun to their head. They were in a high-stakes situation, and had they not had a gun to
that
defend
person would have
themselves,
for sure pulled
they
the trigger.
most certainly would have.
How would you know that?
The likelihood is very high
No,
that they
how
would
would
have.
you know that?
And again, what number is fine for you to say you don't have the right to defend yourself in that situation?
I would say the
because I would say
40,000
I would
people dying a
much
year from
rather
that.
err on the side of being able to defend yourself, and that's a low ball statistic. It's really around 500,000 to over 1 million they estimate maybe have interactions where they save their lives, but they can't measure that because it's harder to measure things that don't happen.
Now, I'm not going to speak for the woman that just said that, but the one thing that we have learned is that majority of these things, they go unreported, a lot of them. But there are a lot of reports saying, you know, some guy tried to rob me, he had a knife, I pulled my gun, I called the cops saying, hey, this is the description. That is where the CDC is getting their information. It's not coming from them going door to door. They're actually taking information from police saying this is what happened. Somebody reported it, they pulled a gun, the other person ran away, and they didn't have to hurt them. You know, but I could be wrong. Leave your comment down below if you think I'm not.
You're expecting?
I am, yes.
Is this your first
You
child?
better hope so.
Congratulations.
Thank you. This is my first child. I am expecting a girl, and I don't think that I'm going to build her feminism off of whether or not she can have a gun.
What the hell is even that? Beta! Beta girl! Be a alpha male, not a beta male. Beta!
I want her to be able to protect herself, stand up for herself, and be comfortable in who she is without a gun.
So if she's very strong and very well trained and she's a confident young lady and she's a feminist and she has a 300-pound man with a gun pointed at her, what do you think is...
Why does this man have a gun?
Well, yeah, okay. So
there's men with guns all over
to clarify, I think, and this goes back to her statistic, which is, hey, it saves people because there's a gun pointed to their head. But that's why we're having the discussion of banning those guns.
Banning those pesky guns. Oh, it just hurts. It truly hurts to hear people speak like this. Just imagine if I was to say, we needed to ban your speech because it's so stupid and it doesn't make any sense. Like, okay. If you want your First Amendment to say those things, man, I'm not saying you have to jump on the I go shoot guns bandwagon, but you might want to appreciate the Second Amendment because that's the only thing stopping the government from taking your First Amendment. I hope you get that.
If you say,
bad guys aren't ever going to get guns?
well,
Bad guys are never
You think the bad guys are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to touch a gun in my life.
We gotta reset. We have to reset.
It's not even remotely closely over. I just had to end it there. It's starting to get a little long-winded. This is something that I hope that you can spread all around. Hit that like, hit that share, subscribe, send it to a friend that's pro-gun or anti-gun, whatever you want. But get this out there because I think it's a discussion that needs to be had. And I wish we had, Jubilee did a good job, able to pull in, they pulled in some YouTubers and they pulled in some anti-gunners, and I give them mad credit, able to bring people into that setting and actually have a decent conversation. As you saw, it was kind of getting out of control, but that's what the moderator was there for. So that being said, don't forget to hit that like, share, and the subscribe button, all that good stuff. If you happen to want one of these shirts or one with your favorite auditor and his catch slogan, email me at thearmedfisherman@gmail.com. They're $20, and I'm gonna get out of here. Links are in the description. Soloyaker, deuces.